Washington Commanders training camp day one is a wrap. What we saw, who stood out, all of that coming up next on Locked On Commanders.
Your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to your Wednesday episode of Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day, especially right after training camp practice. Of course, don't forget you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And if you'd like to, you can continue the conversation about the Washington Commanders with me over on Subtext. Just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. That's another way that you can help support the show and support myself in these efforts. Of course, the first 2 weeks are free, so you get the opportunity to see if you would like to continue conversing with me over text message. Of course, I'm David Harrison, your host of this show, credentialed member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, here with you every Monday through Friday and maybe the occasional Saturday or Sunday during the preseason, during training camp. We are here grinding it out in the heat in Ashburn, beautiful Ashburn. Right behind me, we just wrapped up the first day of training camp practices here in Ashburn. And of course, I appreciate all the everydayers who come through on a consistent basis. On this episode of Locked On Commanders, we're going to discuss Sam Howell's performance on day one of training camp and what we saw from a secondary group that is certainly of interest. But first, we're actually going to rewind a little bit. And head coach Ron Rivera told us on Tuesday that he's looking forward to being a coach only, that he felt like he's been a manager for pretty much his entire tenure here with the Washington Commanders, and acknowledges also that he does have something to prove here in the 2023 season. Saying these things pre-training camp press conference on Tuesday. We have to come down to Ashburn, kind of tour around, see the new additions, the bleachers, and all the new exciting things going on for the fan experience here at training camp. And then we also got a press conference with Coach Rivera while we were here. And during that press conference, Coach said, quote, "I said every time I came in and had to answer your questions," talking to us, the media, that weren't football related, what would it be like just to talk football? That's what is exciting about it for me personally. The last few years, I've honestly felt more like a manager, trying to manage things and stuff like that, trying to keep everybody on task and on focus in terms of the game. Obviously, the spring I thought was really good. It really was, because it was about putting the football team together, knowing that the inevitable in terms of the ownership change was happening so that we would be ready to go when it did happen. That's really been the focus as of late for us, end quote. And of course, that's really exciting for Coach Rivera himself and for even his players. Sam Howell talking on Wednesday about Coach Rivera being a little bit more involved than maybe he has been in the past, because he really has, like Coach Rivera said, he's been a little bit more of a manager than he has just a football coach since he arrived here in Washington, dealing with everything that comes with being the head coach of this franchise. And, look, to a certain extent, there's a little bit of empathy to be put in there, but also to a certain extent, the job is still the job. So, how much is forgiven is really going to be dependent on the media member and, of course, on the fan that you're talking to. But when you go back to his first year here in Washington, having to deal with really not necessarily the peak of the off-field issues and the ownership controversy and all that, but still having to deal with a healthy dose of all that stuff happening, still having a quarterback situation that was certainly not anything near a solidified situation, and then also having to do the coaching and the general managing by himself, because remember, Martin Mayhew didn't join him until a year later, and then he was able to kind of push off some of those duties onto Martin and the other parts of the brain trust that came in to help Coach Rivera out and be able to focus a little bit more on coaching, but still had to kind of be that manager, fielding questions about strategy, X's and O's, player injury, but also fielding questions about Dan Snyder and everything else that was going on at that time. And honestly, talking to Ron now, seeing him on the practice field, you can almost kind of feel the level of relaxation that has come from Coach Rivera so far, even this early in the preseason and the offseason program. Of course, some of that relaxation, some of that good energy is also coming from the fan base. There's a lot of excitement in the air. And Ron Rivera also said that because of you and other Commanders fans like you, that energy coming from you all is energizing him more than anything else, saying, quote, "You can already feel the impact about the fan excitement following the sale of the team. A lot of it has to do with just really the reaction from the fan base more so than anything else. I think our guys have also felt it. They felt it again because of the reaction to fan base. But what's really kind of neat, and if you look outside, you see the setup for camp, and guys, really, they're getting into this. It's kind of a unique feeling. It's exciting. I mean, I'm fired up about the opportunity as we go forward," end quote. And I got to tell you, stepping foot onto Ashburn for the first time since these bleachers and since the new team store that's here on the grounds during training camp has been put up. I was impressed. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna pull any punches. Really coming into Tuesday and getting a tour and kind of getting to see what was going on. I saw the pictures Monday night that the team had put up, so that kind of gave me a little bit of a better view. But coming into even Monday, I really expected just bleachers, just your standard run of the mill bleachers. And don't get me wrong, they're bleachers. They're not exactly luxury seats and all that stuff, but it's a very solid footing. It's a very solid construct. There's nice kind of labeling and logoing going on around it. There's steps, there's ADA access, there's all kinds of good stuff, and it really does. It kind of adds to the aesthetic of the practice area, and looking forward extremely to seeing it hopefully full on Thursday, and certainly over the weekend when more people have time because of work schedules and all that stuff. So Coach Rivera talking about how he's excited and how he knows that the guys are excited about all this. We talked to a few players on Wednesday following practice. I know Tress Way kind of expressed some excitement about the fan base. You already know Jonathan Allen and Terry McLaurin addressed fans at the pep rally, talking about the level of buzz coming from the fan base. So certainly not just the sale, not just kind of the dark clouds starting to drift away from Ashburn, but also the excitement coming from all of you, bleeding its way into the roster, into the locker room. But the team isn't the only one excited about fans, whether it's in show comments on Twitter, whether it's via subtext from those of you who are texting me. The energy is felt all the way around. And I can tell you that the media group around here, we're all looking forward to seeing you as well. And again, Saturday, the report is up to or around 10,000 tickets have been given out for Saturday's practice alone. So we're very excited to see if, how many of those 10,000 show up, because we know sometimes those tickets, especially free tickets, get claimed and they don't necessarily get used. But if 10,000 tickets are claimed, we should have a good thousands of people here in attendance, and that's going to be a lot of fun to see you all out here in Ashburn making training camp a little bit better. Because I'll tell you right now, it is hot. It is sweltering out here, and if it's hot for us, it's even hotter for the players. So you guys really do help make the atmosphere a little bit better. So looking forward to that. Not looking forward to the traffic. Not looking forward to all of that. Of course, I think we all can share and not looking forward to that, but we are looking forward to the fan presence out here in Ashburn. Speaking of opportunities moving forward, though, Rivera said he knows that there's plenty that doubt him as a coach, not just in the fan base, but also in the media and as a leader of the organization. He did tell us and acknowledge that moving forward, he's looking forward to the opportunity to prove something this year, saying, quote, "I've got a lot to prove. We've put ourselves in a really good position with a good young football team along with key veteran players, and now is the opportunity to go. So yeah, I do feel I have stuff to prove." And he continued on later also saying, quote, "For everything that we've done and what we have and how we've competed these last couple of years, we've been too close the last couple of years. We've gotten into a really good run, and it's time to continue to sustain it and prove that these are the guys, these are the coaches, that I'm the right guy to help this organization moving forward," end quote. And that's pretty much what this season is about, is Sam Howell proving that the 5th round draft status doesn't matter and that he can lead a football team. About this defense proving that they are one of the elite units in the National Football League. About Coach Rivera proving that he is the right man to usher in this next era of Washington football for Josh Harris, Mitch Rales, Magic Johnson, and the entire ownership group. And of course, for all of them, including the ownership group, to prove to you all that this is once again a franchise worth cheering on, worth supporting proudly. So a very, very big season of proving it for everybody. Something on the line that was all before training camp even got started. We didn't even have a snap of the ball. The players weren't even here when we had those conversations. So if that's all before training camp, let's dive into what we saw out here in Ashburn at our first training camp practice of the year. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around careers, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. I'm almost 3 years into my retirement from the United States Army, and I'm going to tell you right now that if I told you I did it by myself, I'd be an absolute liar. Having the right people to lean on, talk to, and help me through the darker days really helped me punch through, get to the lighter days, and get to where I am now, sweating my everything off here out in Ashburn for you. It's helpful to learn positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who have experienced major traumas. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/locked on today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thanks again for making a Locked On Commanders your first listen or view of the day every day. Make sure you also come back tomorrow. Day 2 of training camp will be in the book, and we will once again sit down and talk about all the sights and sounds that we're hearing out here in Ashburn. In fact, we had some press conferences today. Antonio Gibson met with us, Jamin Davis, Sam Howell, and some others also spoke to Coach Rivera. We will speak to Coach Rivera every single day, so we can go through some of the things that they had to say tomorrow as well, and of course another practice. But we're going to start off this conversation about today's practice the way that I think we should start off every day of practice or every conversation about the day of practice, and that's with the play of the day. And today's play of the day really came very, very early on and actually came in 7-on-7 drills when quarterback Sam Howell and the starters took the field for the first time against this defense. And so at 7-on-7 drills, so no defensive lineman, no real offensive lineman, center, and nobody else, no pass blocking, no pass rush, all these things, but a live defense as far as coverage is concerned. And on one of the very first plays of this session, running back Antonio Gibson started lined up outside on the left side of the offensive formation, motioned into the backfield next to Sam Howell, who was in the shotgun in the formation. And then on the snap of the ball, came out of the backfield, ran a wheel route up the left sideline of the field. And Gibson was able to get past his linebacker and get open very, very easily. It was a very well run route, very well executed play by the offense. And Sam Howell made the throw look very, very easy, although I can tell you that throw obviously is not the easiest thing in the world. That's why only 32 of these guys get to do this as a starting career in the National Football League. But Howell connected with Gibson down the field in stride, ball in the perfect place. And if it wouldn't have scored a touchdown, certainly would have been a major, major explosive play. And I can tell you wheel routes and running backs, we talked about this a lot already this offseason. Every day, as you're going to remember, we talked about Antonio Gibson getting involved in this offense more as a receiver. We've talked about Brian Robinson maybe evolving and developing his skills as a receiver. And then we've talked about the potential of Curtis Samuel even being a part of that mixture as well, maybe getting some looks in the backfield or motioning in or out of the backfield as the offense sees fit. So a lot of weapons here for Eric Bieniemy to use in his offensive scheme, and he's already putting some of those to use with Antonio Gibson and with some of those wheel routes later on. We'll talk about this here in just a moment. There was another route run by Brian Robinson, speaking of him. That was a very well run route. Again, gave the quarterback just enough space on the sideline to drop the ball in. Sam Howell dropped the ball into him. Brian Robinson came down with a very, very nice catch. But the play of the day goes to Antonio Gibson, who was asked about his role. A lot of Commanders fans have kind of said maybe that Antonio Gibson can be that Jerick McKinnon from Kansas City for Washington here with Eric Bieniemy. He said he's going to be filling more of the JD McKissick type role, and he's perfectly fine with doing whatever the team needs him to do moving forward. So a great play from him. Really good practice overall for Antonio Gibson and the first team offense, but we'll talk about that first team offense a little bit more here in just a little bit. Then with all the battles and questions that we've talked about in the position previews, we had a pre-training camp final kind of battle and question synopsis. There's a lot of battles going on out here. There's a lot of questions to be answered out here for this team, and all of them really positive questions, right? There's not a whole lot of trepidation going on with some of these outside of, I would say, maybe the offensive line, which, again, no pads right now, no live competition, no full contact. So it's kind of hard to see totally, but we do get to see a little bit here while we're here. So we'll talk about that as we go too. But today, the first day, I asked myself essentially, what is the most interesting question that needs to be answered? What's the most interesting battle coming into training camp that I really wanted to pay attention to? And if you're an everydayer, you probably already know the answer outside of the quarterback situation, because we have our Howell watch coming up. The next best thing for me is this secondary, man. I'm incredibly excited to find out how Jack Del Rio is going to utilize all of these secondary weapons that he's got on this roster. I mean, he's got Kendall Fuller, the solid veteran, Benjamin St-Juste, the third-year defensive back who's shown a lot of growth and a lot of potential, versatility inside and out. Then you've also got first-round draft pick Emmanuel Forbes, the ball hawk, the takeaway king from NCAA. You've got Quan Martin, the versatile safety / nickel who come in here. Darrick Forrest, obviously taking a huge step last year. Kamren Curl, the known leader and known quantity in the secondary there. I think you've got Percy Butler as well coming into his second season, really showing a lot of growth during OTAs and the mini camp. So I wanted to come in here and really wanted to find out how is this really going to unfold, right? And as the players were warming up and doing all their stuff, I talked to several members of the team and the organization about the wealth of talent in the secondary. And we all kind of had different ideas of what might happen with this secondary under Jack Del Rio and how he's going to use all these weapons. So that kind of just shows you how differing these options really are here for the Commanders defense. And I was actually asked by one of them to predict the starting secondary today. And of course, starting secondary in NFL, starting player means you're on the field for the very first snap. So if you're not on the field for the first snap, you're not a starter in the record books, right? So I was asked, first 11 on 11 snap, what's the starting secondary look like? And I predicted Kendall Fuller on one outside position, Benjamin St-Juste on the other, give the nod to the more veteran player, Quan Martin in the slot, Kamren Curl and Darrick Forrest playing safety. That was my prediction. And we did, in fact, see that defensive secondary combination, just not on the very first play. On the very first play, what we saw instead was Kendall Fuller outside. Okay, got that one right. Emmanuel Forbes on the other outside position. Kamren Curl down in the slot as the Buffalo nickel. Darrick Forrest back in the safety position, and Percy Butler on the field as the other safety, kind of more of a true traditional, what you would expect as a free safety. So that was the very first formation, secondary combination we got. Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes outside, Kamren Curl down inside the Buffalo nickel, manning the slot. Darrick Forrest as one of the safeties, and then Percy Butler as the other safety. And Percy Butler is a guy that we've talked about here. But I don't know that we've really gone deep enough into what Percy Butler could potentially do for this defense. I think when you look at the safety situation, you look at Kamren Curl and Darrick Forrest, while they're not the exact same player, obviously, they're very similar style of player. I think they both have a little bit more box play ability in them than a lot of safeties do in the National Football League, certainly than a guy like Percy Butler does. When you look at Percy versus, like, say, a Bobby McCain, and Bobby McCain played a lot of slot last year, I think really what you get in Percy Butler is maybe a good almost kind of compliment to Emmanuel Forbes, or maybe Emmanuel Forbes is complimenting Percy since Percy's been here longer, and you get two really athletic, really long defensive backs that have the ability to potentially make plays on the ball. Of course, Percy will have to kind of prove that a little bit more the more and more he gets on the playing field, but you kind of have that more rangy type of situation. And honestly, if you're a quarterback and you've got Percy Butler and Emmanuel Forbes on the same side of the field and you're not running crossing combinations to try to move one of those DBs out of the way, I don't know how you expect to drop anything on any of those guys. You're coming all underneath, you're coming all quick, or else they're going to get in on you, and they're probably going to come away with an interception or two. So it's a really intriguing thing to have Percy Butler also entered into this mix. And I'll tell you, like, we have seen a lot of combinations out here just in day one. I mean, we saw Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste both getting snaps in the slot. Obviously, like I said, Kamren Curl coming down as a Buffalo nickel. Quan Martin was in the slot as well. But then we also saw formations where Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste were the two outside defenders, and Kendall Fuller was on the sideline, not because he got benched, but because you can't just have everybody come out here and do every single rep. And even beyond those guys, Christian Holmes had an interception today on Jacoby Brissett. Tariq Castro-Fields, another second-year defensive back, who, by the way, his number changed from number 41 to number 26. So if you are familiar with him and you come out looking for him, he's going to be wearing number 26 now. He had a good play on a curl route against the third offense, deflected a pass that was then intercepted. And in fact, the secondary got the better of Washington quarterbacks overall today. Again, that one interception on Jacoby Brissett, but then also intercepting Jake Fromm 3 times on the day. They didn't get Sam Howell once, though, today. So they didn't get any interceptions on Sam. And that, I think, is going to be the most important takeaway from today's practice. And that's just one thing that Sam Howell did well, though. What else he did well is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Time for our training camp daily Howell watch here in Ashburn, Virginia. Every day we have training camp practice, we will do a Sam Howell watch. And on this first day of training camp practice, Howell went 8 for 13 in total, which is 62%. I think you typically want your quarterback to go about 70% if you can, but 62%, not terrible, but certainly not as good or great as it could be. But really, when you get beyond the stats, when you get beyond the numbers, had a very solid day given the circumstances. Looking at 11 on 11. So for me personally, I chart the 11 on 11s. I track his completions, his targets, who he's going for, and all these things. I don't track the 7 on 7s. I will make some notes of the 7 on 7s. We already talked about the play of the day, the wheel route to Antonio Gibson being a 7 on 7. And in fact, Sam Howell's most impressive throw of the day came during a 7 on 7 as well. But tracking the 11 on 11s per pass in the first set of 11 on 11s, first team offense versus the first team defense, Sam Howell went 4 for 4. His first pass to running back going down to the field, hitting down inbound. First of 11 on 11, Sam Howell rolled out to the right side to avoid a little bit of pressure, but more of a design pass, and hit an out route to his college teammate, De'Ami Brown, out there as well. Third pass was also completed. Howell climbed the pocket very, very well to avoid pressure coming from the defensive line and threw a dart over the middle to second-year receiver Jahan Dotson, and then finished up with a fourth pass to Marcus Kemp on a very sharp, very good. When you talk about people running comeback routes, curls, all that stuff, you want them to kind of pretend they're sitting in a chair like I am right now. Marcus Kemp could have sat in this very chair the way that he shut down on that route, turned back, and made the catch from his quarterback. Very impressive. 4-for-4 start for Sam Howell, and the offense came out hot early. Later credited the work that he and his receivers did in Florida prior to training camp. They met in the weeks and days leading up to training camp, did some work, and Sam Howell said that had a lot to do with the way they were able to start practice today. And again, each of those completions, all four of them in the perfect spot, complete dots, as you would like to put it. Most impressive route of the day was the wheel route, our play of the day, but the most impressive ball we will talk about here in just a moment. On the second set of 11-11 plays for Sam Howell's offense, went 1-for-1 to start on an out route to Logan Thomas. F.A. Obata did have some early pressure on the play, but Sam Howell was able to escape and get the ball out to his veteran tight end. Went 2-for-2 on a crossing route to Logan Thomas, back-to-back passes. Darrick Forrest was in coverage, was in great coverage, but again, Sam Howell just put the ball at the exact spot you needed him to put it. I'm not going to out people, but there were some reactions from the media group that probably shouldn't be happening because we're not supposed to cheer. But sometimes, guys, those plays happen and you're still human. You know what I mean? That was one of those plays. Unfortunately, 2-for-2 is the best that they would do. Sam Howell ended up 2-for-5, 3 straight incompletions, but only one of the completions was really a very, very bad one. The rest of the completions were really an effort to avoid pressure, very smart throwaways. One of them was kind of a contested 50-50 ball. Emmanuel Forbes was in the area, may or may not have gotten a hand or two on it. It did hit new receiver Byron Pringle in the hands, but I'm not going to mark it down as a drop. You know what I mean? It was a very tough catch. If I could show you, I would. But believe me, it was a very tough catch. Not something I would necessarily mark down as a drop. Probably goes down as a PBU if Emmanuel Forbes got his hand on it. Again, I didn't see if he did, but many of the media members around me who had a better look at the play said that he got a hand on the play. F.A. Obata, speaking of him, had a really good day as well. Got some good pressure, early pressure to help fill the gap while Daron Payne sat out today's practice with what the team is calling a very minor toe injury, calling him day-to-day right now, and it was emphasized over and over again, very, very minor. In fact, it's so minor that it's literally a footnote of this episode that Daron Payne didn't practice. That's how concerned everybody out here is. So as for right now, nothing to be worried about with Daron Payne. Just, I'm going to call it a toe boo-boo, not to degrade or make fun of anybody, but basically to say it's not a serious thing that we should be worried about at this point in time. More to follow, of course, if it does become something we need to worry about. Easily, that set, that 2-for-5 series was the defense's best set against the first team offense. But Howell was also impressive by making sure that throws, that even the ones that he missed, were only where his players could make a play. The defense never had a chance to come away with an interception. I think that's really kind of the key here. The third set of 11-on-11s, 4 passes for Howell. He went 2-for-4, 1-for-1 to start on a short curl to Jahan Dotson in the zone. Jahan finding a very good open space in the zone, turned around, sat down for his quarterback, and his quarterback gave it to him very easily. 2-for-2, gone a dig route from to De'Ami Brown in zone coverage. Again, 2-for-3, another smart throwaway for his first incompletion, and then the fourth pass of the series, another incompletion, another throwaway to avoid what would have been a coverage sack. Now, this set of passes came on a running clock. They were running late game scenario sessions with a running clock, less than a minute left to play. I don't think they had any timeout. I think they took one timeout actually and didn't have anything after there. And the defense, gave up 2 quick passes, gave up what would have been a first down, but then boom, first, second, third down. We're able to keep them under the sticks. And typically in 11-on-11s, your offense gets 5 plays before they give up the field for the next team to come on. But Eric Bieniemy decided after those 4 plays and what would have been coming up on 4th down, he pulled his first team and said, you know what? No, we're not going for it in the game. We're not going to go for it in practice. We're going to practice as we play. And I like that attitude. I think that's a very smart way to do it. So talking about the most impressive throw of the day, again, didn't come in the 11-on-11s, but in one of the 7-on-7 sessions, Terry McLaurin ran a zig route, perfectly clean zig route, as you would expect Terry McLaurin to run against first-round rookie Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes was right on his hip, guys. Did not get burned, did not get bent, but Sam Howell delivered the ball to the perimeter and put it right outside Emmanuel Forbes' outstretched hands. I wish I could have gotten it on film for you guys to see. It was a thing of beauty. And then the catch that Terry McLaurin made with a defender on him, with the defender's hand in his way, with that ball coming low and away. Well, an amazing catch from Terry McLaurin. Really an amazing play all around. Even the coverage. I mean, it was a pass completion, but the coverage was actually very, very good as well. So a very good rep for all three guys involved, but the offense came away with the completion. And that's going to wrap up our comments here from day one of training camp practice out in Ashburn, Virginia. Tomorrow's day 2 of training camp practice with fans. Can't wait to see any of you and all of you that come out to Ashburn for that. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, just drop them in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter. Email me at lockedoncommanders@gmail.com or text me directly via subtext by going to joinsubtext.com/lockedoncommanders. A lot of everydayers in the subtext group, and I appreciate all the everydayers for coming through like you do. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day, part of your football routine. Football is back, ladies and gentlemen. The pads aren't back yet. The hitting's not back yet, but football is back. And the Washington Commanders, if you've got anything else you want to know, make sure you also follow me on Twitter at dharrison82. Until we speak again, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time right here for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.